Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and in this episode I'm going to have a look into my wipers and find out why they aren't actually parking themselves. All right guys, welcome back. A lot of you probably haven't seen Harry on the channel for quite a while now, and that's because I've been flat out on the Rockster and the Alferrari, and they've been keeping me busy. But those of you who watched the previous Alferrari video will have seen that I was pretty stupid and went out on an electric scooter in the wet and basically lost all traction on a wooden bridge and smashed my head into some rails, and I have given myself 11 stitches. So I can't really get super dirty in anything for a little while, so I've put those other sort of very dirty jobs on hold to start tackling some things that I've been meaning to get to on this for a long time. So as I mentioned, I've had this car for quite a while, and I've always had issues with the indicators parking themselves, that they just don't do it. I have double and triple check the wiring, and I've got all the wiring connectors in the right place on the wipers, but I believe it's something inside the wipers themselves that is giving me the issue. So I thought it's a perfect time to get in there and see if we can fix it up and actually get them to stop by themselves back in the right spot. So first of all, let's start pulling them out. All right, so I've removed the wiper motor for the car. So that involved removing the blower unit, and then basically this is bolted up into a bracket, and there's three 10mm bolts in it, and then another 10mm bolt on the arm itself. I find it's easier to undo these three, and the motor drops down, and you can get better access to the nut on the top of the arm, and it comes out pretty easy. My suggestion, whenever you take apart any of this sort of stuff, is take a photo of it before you pull it out, so you know where all the wires go, so you can put them back in the exact right place where all the colours go. But I will put up a picture of which wire goes to what and how it all goes. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open up the back of the unit here, because I'm pretty sure that it's some of the I think it's a bad electrical connection in here somewhere that is not giving me power to the park circuit. So as I said, my wiper works, but whenever you turn it off, it just stops wherever you stop the turn it off in the middle of the windscreen somewhere. So you have to sort of try and time it to turn it off so it stops where you want it out of the way. So which is a real pain. You just want to be able to just flick it off and it'll park itself like wipers do. So let's start pulling apart and see what's inside. All right, I've pulled open my wiper assembly, and this is what we've got inside. So we've got a disc, and there's three contacts here, and there's notches in the disc, and basically wipers are actually a surprisingly complicated circuit for something that seems like it'd be relatively simple. In this case, there's 3 speeds, and what it does is when you turn the wipers on, it creates a circuit, I believe, through a relay setup that that powers on, connects power in a certain way. So when you turn it off, the power stays connected to the wiper, and until this disc turns around and it gets to the notch there with the looks like nylon bit in it. So obviously it loses contact, and that's where the wipers will park. All the terminals, even though it does look reasonably worn in here, I've cleaned it all out, and this part actually looks okay. I've done a little bit more research, and it looks like it could actually be a problem with the switch itself. Is quite likely inside the car. So I might have pulled this out for no reason, but it was worth giving it a good clean. So I'm going to put this back together again, and then we'll tackle on the inside of the car and see if we can get the switch out and have a look at what the problem could be there. All right, this is very difficult to film, but this is the inside of the wiper switch. So you can sort of see there in this shot, you can see there's sort of like a couple of pins right in the middle that are spaced apart. There's two that is in the center of the shot, and then on the other side there's just another two, and there's this big plastic thing in the middle with an arrow head on it, and when I close the switch, it's supposed to squish between those two pins, or those four pins really, and I assume when that closes they're supposed to contact together, and that doesn't appear to be happening. They're not quite touching, and I'm not sure whether they're actually completing a circuit nicely or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in and I'm going to clean them up. I'm going to do just to get a little bit of emery paper in there, try and sand those little terminals and see if I can get them to make a good contact, and maybe that is my issue. All right, so in the end, it actually was not too difficult to fix. So, like I said, it's hard to see in there, but basically there's like an arrow shaped piece of white plastic that, when the switch is off, forces its way in between a couple of terminals. The two terminals on the front side of the switch inside, if you can sort of see when it closes. Basically, the arrow pushes one terminal over onto the other one, and they need to make contact, and they weren't making proper contact. And now they've gone through, I cleaned all the terminals, and I just got a little tiny screwdriver in there, just bent it a little bit, just so that it was just close enough so that when it closes, these terminals touch together, and it works great. There's actually another two terminals sort of on the back side of the switch that I think is basically just to engage the high wipe speed, or at least medium wipe speed, I think, when you put the washers on. So those ones don't get connected together when the arrow goes through, but when the arrow punches its way through, it needs to connect up that closing circuit, and that's what it was. So I've actually got it now where I've tested it, and it was sort of working temporarily. So I'm just going to bolt it all back together again, and fingers crossed, we have parking wipers. Yes, finally. Hey, it's parking. So they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do now. They all work. All of it is working the way it's supposed to, except for the fact that the wiper arms are parking on the wrong side. Now, I know right-hand drive cars, I believe they're supposed to park on this side. The trouble is that I have left-hand drive wiper arm, so this arm is crooked. So they'll sit low and nicely out of the way on the other side. So I don't mind that they're on that side and that they'll probably wipe the passenger side first, and that doesn't bother me. I just prefer them to be out of the way because this is not a nice place from the stop. So I'm going to alter that now. So I'm going to go back underneath now, and I'll show you how to reverse the side where the wipers sit. Okay, so it's hard to see here, but I'm under here. Here's the wiper motor, and here's the bracket it sits on up the top here. So I need to get in here with a 10mm spanner, undo this nut at the back here, and I need to lift this arm up off of the motor so that it's not engaged, make sure it's not actually touching, and then physically move the wipers to the other side of the screen, and then put the arm back on and tighten that 10mm nut up again, and that way you'll actually have wipers that sit on the other side, and they'll stop that side rather than the current one. All right, one more thing is before you test them, always make sure you have them standing up like that, just in case you don't want them to actually go down into your paintwork. That can happen if you have done something wrong. Always test it like this first before they're sitting on the windscreen, because yeah, you don't want nasty things to happen. Looks good so far. that is such a relief. Oh, you don't know what sort of weight that is off of my mind. That is finally sorted out. It has been driving me crazy the whole time I've had this car, and yeah, it seems like it's such a little problem not having the wipers parked, but it's really, really annoying. And to actually just figure it out and get it sorted, and hopefully have this as a reference for any of you who come across the same issues. Hopefully you can use this in the future and be able to diagnose your own problems. As I believe it is often the switch in under the dash, so it might save you a bit of work pulling that stuff out. But in the motor, as I said, there are those little terminals inside the motor itself, which could also be an issue, so it's worth checking that there. I'm not putting it all back together because I'm going to be back very soon putting air conditioning into Harry as well. It's getting better and better all the time, and I'm fixing all these little niggling problems that have been weighing on me. It's one thing to get a car finished, but is it ever finished? And just getting everything right is worthwhile. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Do the things like subscribe, join us on Patreon. You watch your videos a day before everybody else, ad-free. And if you need parts for any of your Porsches, whether it be an old 911 or a Roadster or whatever, make sure you compare prices at PorschePartsByJeff.com first. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.